Now, recording started, and let's open up the waiting room. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome AJ, welcome Alan, welcome Chris. Everyone just joining in right now. So yeah, welcome to the joint webinar between Seller Candy and Mayan, all the way from Las Vegas. I like your background, Chris.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. It's always a good talking point. One time somebody was like, "Are you in Paris?" because of that, but no, yeah, most people recognize it. So it's Vegas, and or you live there, or you just like the city? And it's like, no, I live outside of here in Henderson, Nevada. So yeah,
It's like Amazon is the best gamble.
yeah,
Something subconscious
that,
going on there.
yeah, and also there's always conferences here. There's obviously Prosper. There's CES coming up in January. There's always something going on. So
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, for business, Vegas is a great place to be based, and it's just quite
yeah,
yeah, off the strip is so different as well.
oh, for sure.
Yeah, and all the shows and the last minute tickets you can get to shows and stuff, which is super cool when I was there.
Yeah, plan to take advantage of that more as our kids get older.
Mm. Get it? Well, welcome, Lewis, Marco, Alan, another Alan. We're gonna get started in about 30 seconds, and yeah, just a few more people joining in.
Any holiday plans on the personal side?
Holiday plans. I just got back
Christmas, New
from a
Year's.
conference in Bangkok. I think I got the flu or something for the last 2 weeks. So I've been no more holidays for a while. We also had a baby like 9 months ago. So
Oh, you're in
he's
the thick
not,
of it. Yeah.
so yeah. So it's an interesting time. We've done a little bit of traveling. So I went to this conference, we took the baby. I went up north in Vietnam, but it's about time to not travel too much, I think.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. We'll be going to Phoenix right before New Year's, but otherwise staying home for Thanksgiving and Christmas,
Mm,
and just going through Black Friday, Cyber Monday, busy times, which
yeah,
obviously we'll dive into soon.
busiest time of year.
Yep.
I'm gonna sneeze. All right. So, welcome everyone to this joint webinar between Seller Candy and Mayan. Um, we've known each other. I think we met like 3 or 4 years ago, first time
Yeah,
at
in February.
Prosper Show in Vegas.
Yeah.
So now we get to connect from the other side of the world. Um, I love what Mayan's doing with with their PPC and their marketing, and they've got such a great reputation in the industry. We just wanted to do this partner webinar to, share some education with our audience as it's coming into the busiest time of year. Whether you're just a Q4 product and this is your time of year, or whether you're a year-long product, this is still the time to make hay while the sun shines. This is not going to be about ordering products because you should have done that about 3 or 4 months ago, but it's going to be about how to maximize your results through PPC. And Chris is here to share that with you. So welcome, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. And same for Seller Candy. We've actually referred over a couple of customers to Seller Candy and had success. And I'll give a little bit of background on my end. But
Mm.
yeah, while we do have the technology to help with ads and pricing optimization and a few other levers, whenever customers have suspensions or what have you, we sent them over to Seller Candy as the experts. And within a couple of weeks, got things back in order and got the accounts activated or the products reactivated, and then been able to help them scale back. So maybe there'll be a joint case study down the road.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing. And I'm going to be here in the background with my camera off because I'm slightly dying of the flu. If you need anything, just say anything, and I'll be back at the end for questions as well.
Oh, sounds great.
Yeah, over to you,
And
Chris. Are you able to share your
yeah,
screen?
yes. Do you see a PowerPoint deck
Yeah,
coming up?
perfect.
Perfect. All right, great. So, as John mentioned, we're going to go through some of the basics, including a little bit of just like preparation on the inventory side. Even if you already have ordered for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and you're good for the holidays, well, guess what? A lot of sales that we see actually pick up like starting December 27, 28. So, right after the new year, people have returns or gift cards on Amazon, and the sales pick up, before a couple days, before Christmas, they start to slow down through a couple days after Christmas. But so even if we're focused on the next 6 to 8 weeks of the remaining year, you still have to get ready for Q1. So we'll kind of touch on all of that. Um, A little quick intro on Mayan. We've been around for about 5 years. We focus on analytically driven automations to help any Amazon seller sell as efficiently as possible. We are MIT co-founders, so we're data nerds at the end of the day, and everything is backed by the data that we are presenting on and delivering in terms of expertise and insights that we've garnered over several years, hundreds of audits, hundreds of accounts in all different categories and seasonality components, etc. So, and as mentioned, while we do have our bread and butter on the ad side and the PPC space, we also haven't taken into account cost of goods sold when we're optimizing because it's all about profitability. Take into account inventory lead time, so we know how much time we have until the next shipment needs to be reordered from your end, and being able to optimize accordingly, as well as pricing optimization and listing optimization. So we do have like a holistic approach. It's not just only ads, or it's not just only listing optimization in our perspective. So quick agenda, as mentioned again, we'll touch on briefly on the supply chain and the importance there, but we'll dive into some of the common strategies that we see either being implemented or being missed out on the PPC side. How to incorporate inventory. Again, it's a holistic approach. And then the typical holiday strategy that we see, whether it's Prime Day or coming up for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that really maximizes sales. And also the caveat that sometimes it makes sense more to focus on maximizing profits and how to balance that out. And throughout the session, if there's any questions, John, feel free to, if people want to put them into the chat, but happy to answer any questions throughout, but obviously we'll save some time at the end as well. So give a little bit about overview of Mayan. Another differentiator that we have is that it's not just the technology, we have a human in the loop, if you will, as much as everything's about AI for the past couple of years, and especially more and more every day. You still need a human in the loop to be able to monitor, optimize, and come in and implement the strategy that's aligned between the customer and our customer success teammates. Quick background on myself. As mentioned, graduated from MIT, always been in the ad tech or ed tech space, working alongside, again, doing everything that's data driven, working alongside customer success, sales, data science teams, engineering teams. So always been in the startup space. And yeah, we started Mayan about 5 years ago, got into Y Combinator, and have been able to scale ever since. So we work with customers generally making in the 6, 7, or 8 figures, but we work with customers starting from zero or all the way, as well as a top 10 seller making 9 figures a year on Amazon alone. So we've definitely seen a lot in terms of, again, different accounts, strategies, etc. And happy to impart any wisdom if you have any questions, either related to your specific product or category or in general. So real quick, we'll get this out of the way because as John mentioned, this is something that, again, you probably should have already done ahead of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but it's also, there is a big uptick in sales sometimes right afterwards. That sales velocity increase, especially if you use some of the holiday strategies to grow sales, will carry through until December 21st, 22nd, and sometimes pick up again right after December 27th, 28th through the new year. So depending on your seasonality, you might need to already start thinking about replenishing your holiday sales. Obviously, taking into account your anticipated growth, but something that you definitely need to always keep monitored. We work with customers that are making that are one people operations all the way up to, again, like companies that are 20, 50, or hundreds of employees, and everybody has products that go out of stock. Unfortunately, we're trying to mitigate that through upcoming smart alert that we're developing on the technology side to be more proactive than reactive. But yeah, even if you have, again, a full company with allocated resources towards maintaining inventory, sometimes it's not even that you ran out of inventory. It might be that you ran out of inventory on the FBA side, and now your products are FBM, which we've seen hurt conversion rates anywhere from like 20 to 40% lower from going from FBA to FBM. So again, that's something that everybody manages, whether you're a solopreneur or have a proper well-oiled machine. I think one thing that is always important is taking into account the lead time, all the variables that go into that. It's obviously once we enter the new year, then it's Chinese New Year, and again, some of the factories, if you're sourcing from China, are going to be down for several weeks. So just something to be top of mind and get everything ahead of time. It's always better to be, if you're erring on one side or the other, again, depending on your cash position and everything else, it's better to lean on the overstocked than understocked position, because at least if you're overstocked, you're able to deploy strategies, which we'll talk about in a minute, to be able to turn that inventory into cash flow. If you're out of stock, you're not selling anything, you're not getting any revenues, and now you've fallen behind. Your competitors are now getting the sales that you would have gotten. So something that, again, is very important to not just take into account how long it takes to produce and get it into Amazon sellable, but maybe even between your warehouse into Amazon sellable. And all these variables are just something to keep top of mind, as well as, of course, check-in time, which is going to be increasing over the next few weeks. So as much as you wish, even with all the data science and seasonality components taken into account, it's still going to be a little bit difficult to be perfect in terms of like ordering the right quantities. So you always want to have a good pulse check on how things are, both in the past, let's say a year ago, but also the most recent past, the last couple months. Have you been on an upward trajectory? Have you launched new products? What is the ROI that you're seeing in terms of the newest shipments that you've been able to get in? Obviously, tariffs were a big deal this year, and we'll see what happens with the court cases there. But ultimately, all these variables are a lot of components that you have to take into account whenever you're looking to really maximize the present and obviously the future. So within that, whether you're understocked or properly stocked or overstocked, what are some strategies that you can take into account? For today's webinar, we're obviously talking about PPC, but just as a quick point, there's price optimization. If you're understocked, then maybe you increase the price to slightly slow down sales velocity, in the sense that you don't want to go out of stock, because that's when Amazon will ding you. And being able to then, on the other side, if you're overstocked, maybe applying some discounts. We have a pricing optimization tool that we've been able to find performs better than just straight applying a discount or a lower price, because you're able to see, Amazon sees different price points on their search algorithm results, and that'll help your products get a little bit more visibility, have a higher ad click-through rate, and also be able to, at the end of the day, deliver more sales. So again, erring on the side of being overstocked, if you will, because then there's other strategies that you can deploy to be able to increase sales. But optimizing it, your campaigns with inventory in mind. As mentioned, if you go out of stock, your sales start to fall down, your sales velocity, your rank starts to fall down, and it takes a little bit of time. Some folks I've heard in the industry might say it takes a couple months to recover. That's if you're out of stock for a couple months. I'd say if you're out of stock for a couple days or a week, you can recover relatively quickly. But still, again, better to be not in that situation. And there are ways to take that into account. Again, also, one other lever besides increasing your price point is also maybe scale back on your ads and only focus on the highest ROAS or highest return or the best ranking campaigns, just to make sure that, again, you're doing what you can to control that until the next shipment comes in case you're in a tight deadline. So as mentioned, those are there. You can also decrease the bids, just lower the budgets, be able to optimize and aim towards higher efficiency. You can also leverage that time to maybe experiment with A/B tests and optimize your listings, whether it's the images or the title, the description, the back-end SEO keywords. There's a few levers you can still do, whether you're understocked or overstocked or properly stocked, but those are some options that you can do to make sure that, hey, while you're kind of waiting for the next shipment, what can we do in terms of learning, maybe on the price point? Maybe you can find that your product is actually inelastic, meaning if your $20 product, you need to increase to $22.50, for example, because you're running low on stock, or $25. You might find that your conversion rate and everything else stays constant. Then why not take advantage of that extra margin to be deployed towards growth on the ad side, to maybe deploy on a coupon, for example, coming up in peak holiday shopping period. So just something to keep in mind as you're continuously optimizing your overall business. Obviously, it goes without saying, if you're starting to see ahead of time, as much as possible, restock, whether it's repurchasing from your manufacturer, reshipping, reordering the next shipment from your house, your warehouse to Amazon Fulfillable. Just something to always keep top of mind, that there are a lot of moving pieces, and better to err on the side of extra time, extra inventory, than cutting it close and going out of stock. So as John mentioned, we're already past maybe sending in a lot of traffic or inventory to FBA for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. The dates are obviously coming up with Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Uh, but as mentioned here, there starts to be, again, arrivals coming in for the next shipments that are obviously going to go through Christmas peak period of December 22nd, but also getting ready for the year after. So just because you're all ready and fully prepared for Q4 doesn't mean you have to already start thinking about Q1 and beyond. So if you do end up in the situation where you are have a little bit of excess inventory, um, again, what are the disadvantages? Obviously, there might be long-term storage fees, or your cash position is in stock, if you will. So what can you do to convert that into cash flow? Maybe you over forecasted, or maybe there was a new competitor that's starting to take market share. What are the options from here? As mentioned, you can maybe look at lowering prices and being a little bit more aggressive on the ad side. You can possibly look at creating a bundle and virtual bundles first, foremost, before you actually creating different bundles. But another way to increase your AOV, your average order value for every purchase, every order. Um, you can look to sell on other marketplaces. We've had several customers that are expanding onto whether it's Walmart, Shopify, Target, etc. At the end of the day, there might be other options to be able to sell those products in other marketplaces and be able to fortify your cash position. This is in extreme cases. Maybe you're going to look at creating an Amazon removal or look to liquidate. Again, those are kind of maybe last options. You really want to make sure if you're going to be having excess inventory, or if you have a product that one of our customers calls like a dog of a product that isn't doing really well and is just not going to be a great seller. You experimented and now you've learned. At the end of the day, it's better to get 80, 90, 100 cents on the dollar as opposed to selling for pennies on the dollar. And you can do that again through maybe deals or some other promotions. So better to get as much ROI back as possible before you're looking at these kind of more drastic options in the lower left and right side. As mentioned, a virtual bundle is a great option. It also makes it such that your products are more visible above the fold and pushes down the competitors or those sponsored product targeting ads. So just something that, especially if it becomes something that sells well, it actually ends up going right underneath the price point. And that's something that's a recent update over the past few months, but you can actually have it where it's another option right under the price point. And again, just another option to be able to maybe mix a high seller with a medium to low seller and see if you can start moving more units organically through that process. So in terms of what we've seen that works really well, obviously if you have the stock in place, is to make sure that you have pricing in order. Everybody's heard about the strategy. I'm sure that you increase your prices 30 days before Prime Day, or in this case Black Friday, Cyber Monday, such that you can then allow an option for a 20% discount. Now, what we've seen is that in terms of the best strategy to maximize sales on Amazon during Prime Day and these peak holidays periods is to, yes, do a Prime exclusive discount of 20%. Obviously, when you're fighting for margins, that's where increasing the price beforehand helps mitigate that decrease. And you could also learn during that 30-day period ahead of time if that higher price actually does make a big difference in terms of conversion rate. We've seen customers, at least for Prime Day, and we have a case study on this, grow their sales anywhere from 3 to 4 to even 5 or 10 times as many sales week over week for Prime Day, or in this case, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, to just based on the strategy of applying 20% discounts across your overall, all your product line. The big change, especially this year more than last year, is some customers are deciding to sit that out. There's pros and cons. Obviously, every company has their own cash or profitability decisions to make. But I will say there, for some companies that we've seen go from that maximize sales approach to the ruthlessly maximize profit approach in terms of not offering any discounts during Prime Day, we've seen those sales significantly increase, where used to be maybe 3, 4, 5x week over week, maybe they increase by 20 to 40, 50%, just kind of leveraging the high tide lifts all boats concept of Prime Day, more traffic, or Black Friday, Cyber Monday, more traffic. Again, you will see just less overall volume being moved, but you will keep that extra margin. So you have to do that calculus on your own end. But again, one silver lining of playing this Amazon game is that you're going to be, again, protecting the competitors, protecting or gaining more market share during this period by playing this peak strategy. And you'll also see, because of the sales velocity increase during that period, you'll see that increase conversion rate in the weeks following, and which is obviously really critical coming up. It's not just Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Yes, sales increased by 2, 3, 4x. Great. It's also, can we keep that momentum going into December 2nd all the way through December 21st, 22nd? So those 3-week period afterwards is also really critical. And we've seen situations, if you're able to see my hand, where yes, there's that increase during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Maybe the day in between the weekend and also the day after, maybe there's a little bit of lower sales comparatively, still better than before. But then afterwards, it continues on that positive momentum where, again, in some cases, that Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales volumes are relatively similar to what maintains the 3 weeks afterwards. So just something to keep in mind. And again, being able to make that decision obviously depends on your own constraints and variables. This is the example that I referenced earlier. So we worked with a customer starting in 22, but in the year before, 21, they didn't run any promotions, didn't run any increased ads spend, if you will. And, they saw very minimal, it looked like any other kind of day was Prime Day in terms of the week over week sales growth. But then when we partnered up, deployed our strategy, and implemented still efficient, but a little bit more ad spend to fortify the increased traffic, we saw a significant increase in volume. And this is actually one of our case studies where they went from 3 to 6 to 9 to now $11 million in annual sales. So again, it is something that, as painful as it can be, giving up those margin points, it's worth it in the long run, as long as you're, again, doing it strategically and efficiently as possible to increase more market share, to get that sales velocity up right before peak season. So one thing that you can do ahead of time, and we still have 3 weeks before the Black Friday, Cyber Monday period, start optimizing your campaigns, making sure that you're deploying the latest strategies, which we'll talk on in a minute. Ensuring that you're going as efficiently as possible will then allow you to be a bit more aggressive during that Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend and the following weeks thereafter. So in terms of the advertising strategy, I want to get into this because this is where, again, from running hundreds of audits, we see sometimes the very common opportunities or missed opportunities from previous or incoming customers, and obviously ones we see successful once we start working together. So in terms of an ad strategy, as much as possible, try to avoid a cap budget. We had one customer that went from $500,000 to $800,000 to $1.1 million year over year, and that growth was basically the customer saying, "Hey, as long as you can have a 4 ROAS, I'm willing to spend as much as we can," because that's where he found the optimal data point in terms of his margins, and we hope to scale that up. And you still want to have, actually, like I say, avoid a cap budget. You still want to have an SP daily budget cap, which we often see not being utilized or being used by customers. That essentially lets you set a ceiling, but again, make it a fair ceiling such that we can take advantage of these periods or increase it, especially during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or Prime Day as an example. Be sure to increase it and just make sure you're always keeping an eye. It's not just the campaigns running out of budget. It might be that SP daily budget cap going out of budget. But yeah, during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Prime Day, these peak periods, we typically see volumes on the search site increase by 200 to 300%, so 3 to 4x increase. So you definitely want to make sure, again, within reason, that you're capturing and staying active as 24/7 as possible. Another point in terms of the ad strategy that we often see is sometimes customers before maybe leaning only on auto and saying, or other competitors, let's start with auto and then let the algorithm figure it out, and then we'll extract and harvest keywords, et cetera, et cetera. There's enough research, enough data out there that you can start from the get-go with these long-tail keywords. Obviously, you might want to have like a 1 or 2 token keyword that really dominates and helps you with rank, but understand that it's going to be highly, while it will have high volume, it's going to be highly competitive, higher CPCs, generally lower conversion rate and lower ROAS, lower return on ad spend. So that's where you want to lean into your SQP, search query performance, or STIS, search term impression share reports, to be able to identify the appropriate keywords that make sense, and that's how customers are finding you. We have our own internal LLM, but obviously there's ChatGPT and everything else in the AI space to be able to aggregate or identify maybe long tail keywords that are 3, 4, 5 tokens. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're selling a spatula. It might not be, can you do metal spatula or plastic spatula or black plastic spatula, and all these various keywords, black spatula for non-stick. So basically all these long-term, long-tail keywords are going to have less volume, but if you find enough of them in the dozens or hundreds per product, you'll be able to make that volume up, and they're significantly more efficient. Another missed strategy that we often see, I mentioned already, going the strategy of thinking, oh, let's just go auto to manual. Sometimes we see the opposite, only 100% manual. There's no auto or discovery or a backfill, if you will. There's also sometimes situations where customers only do exact or only do broad. Generally, we want to test everything. We'll test auto, broad, phrase, exact, competitive, product targeting, both expanded and exact, and category. So we have 7 different options on the SP side, let alone SP video and SD remarketing, that you want to deploy and test everything. And basically what we found is that broad generally is going to give you the best traffic, lower performance. The exact is going to give you higher return on ad spend, but less traffic. And phrases in the middle, again, you kind of want to test a little bit of everything, so that way you can let the data drive your decision making and optimization processes. This may sound counterintuitive because we're coming up into peak season, but try to be wary of very generic holiday related keywords such as best gifts for mom, or Christmas toy, etc. Like, even if you're selling a toy and it's perfect and it's Christmas themed even, you still want to lean into what actually is differentiating your product and why customers would search or even buy your product compared to others. And so having, maybe it's Batman Christmas toy, for example, and basically being able to get more in the weeds of what your product is actually offering, maybe Batman Christmas toy for kids, etc. So having those extra tokens is going to allow you, and if you're targeting on that specific keyword in an exact phrase or broad way, but especially exact, that means that if you're able to target that keyword, you'll be given more prominence, especially if it's tied to your listing, etc. So again, it might sound counterintuitive, but those holiday related keywords are going to generally drive up your traffic and to significantly eat into your margins and basically have a lot of click waste. We have another customer that we work with where basically they sell, candies and snacks, and Easter and Christmas or Halloween are their peak periods. And there was a concept of, hey, let's start advertising on Halloween starting in July or August. Frankly, that didn't really yield results and ended up leading to a lot of wasteful ad spend in the months before. If you're doing something like this, if you do need to or want to test this kind of a strategy, such for example, best gifts for mom, best holiday gifts for girlfriend or what have you, those are the types of things that maybe you want to test. Cap the budget on those campaigns, experiment with the CPC. Maybe you have a lower bid, but have a huge increase on the top of search bid adjustment. And that's one way to really make sure you're only on for those highly competitive keywords. You're only doing that for premium traffic, which is going to be top of search at the top of the results page. And lastly, one other talking point there in terms of placements. We typically see those being underutilized. Sometimes a customer will just have, let's say, a dollar bid on their $20 to $5 product, which is fair as a baseline bid, but then they're not increasing that bid for top of search or for, as has been available for about a year now, B2B. That's actually one of the most underutilized options that we see, is that bid adjustment, as well as B2B and recently B2B only campaigns. Those have been significantly successful for our customers, whether a third of their sales come from B2B or even only 5 or 10%. Those B2B only campaigns generally drive significantly higher AOV, higher units per order, and higher ROAS. Yes, it's going to be a small percentage of your budget just because there's less Amazon business traffic than overall Amazon.com traffic, but still leveraging every lever you can to really maximize and squeeze out as much profitability from your campaigns is super crucial. So those are things that we would recommend doing ASAP if you haven't already, as well as, for example, SB B2B campaigns is also a recent initiative. So yeah, just a lot of options that may be underutilized and your competitors might not be doing so. And if you are, that's how we've been able to help customers win. So kind of referencing earlier, like expand, optimize is our general approach. Always testing, always learning. And this is actually a screenshot. And in the back, you can see the 7 different targeting types, if you will. Here's our LLM feature to be able to find the right keywords and also different ASIN structures. We lean into, and we've seen great success by having a single ASIN campaign as opposed to a mixed ASIN structure. Can't tell you how often we'll see in terms of audits, 20 different products in a single campaign or within an ad group. And the fact is, if there's a $10 product mixed in with a $100 product, doesn't matter if they're all very similar. If you're targeting something at a dollar bid, it's going to be really unprofitable for that $10 product, but it might be okay for the $100 product. But now you're blending your results. And even if it's a good ROAS overall, it could be that you're really missing out on more sales for the higher price product and really wasting money on the lower price product, even if it's the same target, similar product, etc. So you really want to make sure that you're optimizing in terms of that ASIN structure and also in terms of the targeting. As mentioned, placement bid adjustments, always underutilized, almost always underutilized when we're looking at audits. And also be aware of your break-even ROAS. This is kind of a controversial talking point, but ROAS isn't the end-all be-all. Neither is tacos, neither is sales growth. It's all about a holistic approach. Because, for example, and we've seen it where, hey, you could have really low tacos, but that means you're missing out on sales growth. And then we start working with the customer, creating more optimized and different campaigns and targeting, etc. And now we're really increasing sales growth while still maintaining a solid ROAS. Or on the opposite side, we've seen it where it's like, hey, I have a 5 or 10 ROAS, which is great, but your ad spend might not be really maximizing the opportunity there. Or on the opposite side, where you're seeing maybe 2, 3 ROAS and being more break even, but there's some keywords that are just really wasteful in the hundreds of dollars. Even we've seen where it's like your $25 product, you spent $200 or $300, no sales. Why is that keyword still active? Why is it still being bid up so much? So yeah, there's a lot of learnings that you can do just by digging into the data. Or in this case, obviously what we have is more of a hybrid approach where we have the technology to be able to set restrictions in terms of lowering bids or pausing targets based on certain KPIs that you determine. But being aware of your cost of goods sold, your profitability, what is break even is definitely an important variable overall. Oh, and just real quick, here's where I mentioned within our technology, we also enable from the beginning, from campaign creation structure and the setup process, immediately start with a 30%, for example, top of search, or a 30% B2B bid adjustment, because that's where we usually see significantly higher returns and conversion rates. So hopefully that was helpful in terms of like how we approach, and we've seen success, again, working with customers ranging anywhere from 6 to 9 figures in apparel, in the pet space, in consumer electronics, everywhere, in B2B or more B2C, doing data-driven, obviously AI-assisted or AI-driven approach in terms of finding more long-tail keywords, optimizing your campaigns, doing it with the right structure, but also making sure that, hey, once we start scaling, let's keep up with demand and get that inventory reordered in larger quantities and quicker. Let's optimize the price in terms of your optimal price curve. Maybe you're overpriced a little bit on the higher end or on the lower end. And you won't find that out unless you test iteratively throughout the year, but obviously all towards the end goal of doing it during peak season when you can really maximize your sales. So yeah, happy to open up to any questions, and feel free to ask anything that you have in terms of being specific towards your product, your category, or just anything that we've seen over the years of having run hundreds of audits.
Thank you for sharing, Chris. And thanks for the detail. I think what I really like about the way, yeah, Mayan works is because you actually work through, through the data, through the detail, you can actually share insights, which is really cool. So I had a few questions pre-submitted, which I thought we can go through. And then from there, if anyone else wants to ask live, you may ask live. Just either put it in the chat or in the Q&A box. Both those should work. So something I was thinking before was how do you balance aggressive holiday ad spend with the risk of stockouts when maybe this wasn't the strategy, you know, 6 months ago when you ordered or you've been scaling, a lot of people hopefully have been scaling this year.
Yeah, and that's where taking into account multiple data points. So, for example, if you have you had a solid tacos, but now you're out of season, and your tacos is starting to creep up. Maybe your ROAS is still staying constant, but your organic sales are falling, which is why your tacos are starting to increase. That would be something that might say, hey, let's increase and improve and iterate on our listing. Let's try different photos. Let's try different SEO keywords or title description, because we see the ads are still constant, but the overall sales are still declining. Our ranking is starting to slow down. So, in terms of, yeah, if you see during like peak season the results aren't there again, hopefully you'll have done that before in terms of making sure that you're as efficient as possible to then maximize sales. Because another data point or just insight that may not be obvious is that there's generally a negative correlation between higher ad spend and lower ROAS, meaning you can be again super efficient but have low spend, or you can be again not ideal but high spend and low, very low ROAS. But at the end of the day, you can iterate through that process throughout the year or many years and
Mm,
be able to say, all right, we're going to expand into new product launches or different targeting campaigns. Now let's optimize, expand, optimize, and that is how we kind of counteract or ride the wave, if you will, of that data point.
mm. Yeah, it makes sense. I suppose rolling off that is like, given that ad costs tend to spike and sometimes they spike very quickly because people start coming into the market and really spending, what's the best way to maintain profitability without losing visibility of what's going on in your account?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the strategies we've seen work well is for some of those hero keywords, if you will. We live by the 80-20 rule and we try to diversify it as much as possible, but there's still always going to be those products or those keywords that are going to be driving the majority of your product profitability and sales. So it might make sense to, in our general structure, we lean into like 20 to 50 keywords or
Mm,
even a couple hundred product ASIN targeting in those campaign structures. Sometimes it makes sense, hey, this one keyword is driving 40-50% of the ad spend in this campaign. Let's break it out into its own campaign and really control it a bit more granularly.
mm,
And that's one way to be able to mitigate, yeah, there's going to be higher CPCs during, as we saw in October Prime Day, July Prime Day, and obviously coming up. There are ways to mitigate that increasing CPC by going again towards long tail keywords as well, because those are going to generally have less competition.
mm,
And so that way you can win the bidding algorithm, if you will, by just making sure you have that top of search bid adjustment or B2B bid adjustment, which really works well. That's the premium traffic, and doing it on long tail keywords and just continuing to blend that way.
mm. Okay, I like it. And I guess then that brings like the opposite. So rather than being understocked, what if you've screwed up and you're overstocked? And you said before
Mhm.
about turning that into an advantage. Like, what would you do to turn that into an advantage?
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it is, yeah, what can, generally you have products that, assuming you've been selling for at least a few months before in terms of this, a product that you might be overstocked in, you clearly have been able to scale it well, and maybe you're just over and you have 4 to 5, 6 months of inventory. So what can you do? Definitely leaning into price optimization. We've seen through some tests when we first started out, and since then we've scaled with our price optimization tool. We were able to increase, even if you decrease your price by about 10%, you can still see a net positive effect of anywhere from like 20 to 30%
Mm,
improvement in conversion rate to counteract that. So even if you're making lower margins, you're at least getting more volume.
Mm,
out of that, and then being able to increase that sales velocity. So it's a little bit of like maybe one step back, two steps forward type of approach where, hey, we're going to eat a little bit more margin right now. We're going to be a little bit more aggressive on the ads or what have you to draw down the inventory that we have. But now with the higher volume and the higher sales velocity and the better ranked, let's now optimize, a few weeks or a couple or a month or two after, and now we have higher volume in terms of sales velocity, better rank, and now we're able to be a bit more efficient, and maybe we can re-raise the price back up.
hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, and I guess that's when optimization of that part doesn't really matter so much for maximizing profit. We're just going for sell through. Because it used to be you could sit with inventory for 5 or 6 months, but now Amazon is hammering long term, then it's pretty much never economical for you to keep that much inventory in stock.
Yeah, and that's where bundles help, so that way you can kind of mix in if you ideally have products that blend together well,
Mm,
complementary goods, if you will, then hey, let's package them together, and that's another way to just move the volume at a bit of a higher clip than before.
love it. Um, you mentioned using LLMs,
Yep.
and AI for keyword discovery. How much do you trust? I guess trust but verify.
Yeah,
But how much do you trust and how do you verify that?
that's a great question, and one that we've definitely spent time and built into our technology. So, to your point, like there are some keywords that might not make sense. And so, one example that I can give, one of our customers works in the college space.
Mm,
And so, if they're selling product for college A, LLM will think, oh, let me advertise college B, C, D, and all these other,
mm,
not really competitive, but other schools. And all of a sudden, it's completely mismatched.
yeah.
And so one way that we have within our filter in our keyword generator is in the LLM, you can say, hey, these keywords must contain, college, or we work with another customer that is in the automotive space. And in that case, if you're selling something that's for Toyota or Honda Accord, etc., like basically you want to make sure that you have the right make and model,
Mm,
and you can actually within our technology filter for that. So even if you have hundreds of keywords and they're 80 to 90% accurate from what we've seen, you still don't want to let those ones that are going to include a Ford or Mustang keywords in there. So you can actually filter all the results with, hey, must include Mustang as an example if you're looking at a Mustang product. And that way you can, like you said, trust but verify is just by like making sure, hey, these are the right keywords that we want in place. So that's one way, and that we've seen to be really successful to drive scale for new keywords that you want to use for discoverability.
that's cool. Yeah, yeah. I can understand how with AI, you could definitely get to the right result if you asked it the right queries based on that. When you like, does this fit the right model? Is there anything wrong here? And then feeding that back into itself. But it's not quite there yet, is it? Unless you put it in thinking mode for understanding that a Mustang 80 to 86 is not an 87.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it will
yeah,
shove every date in there because that will give you the maximum amount of traffic.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. And I guess final question that we had submitted before was like, if you had to focus on like one metric for Q4 to make better PPC decisions, what would it be and why, I guess?
What decision to take place as we head into Q4 on the PPC side?
What metric would it be you'd
What
focus on in
metric?
order to make better decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question. I look whenever we're looking at our accounts as on the customer success side, it's a few variables: year over year and month over month sales. Because it could be that hey, we launched more products, so naturally we're up year over year. But are we growing more month over month than we were last year?
Mm,
And so that speaks to, hey, it's not just, from naturally November, December sometimes accounts for 30 to even up to 70 or 80% of customer sales. But hey, were we able to basically grow at a higher rate more recently? And what does that mean in terms of obviously inventory or ads optimization? Same thing for ads. Again, maybe it can be, hey, we work with a customer that's one of our other case studies. They went from 2 to 8 to 60 million, and basically being able to identify, oh well, yeah, if we wanted 2x in that case, we're spending as much as we were last year at the same month. That doesn't make sense. We need to increase that budget a bit more to really hit the goals,
mm,
if you will. So that's another variable that I would take into account is what are your recent growth trajectories and what were you spending last month versus at the same month last year versus this year. Um, Obviously, tacos and ROAS are very popular metrics to be aware of, but sometimes it does. We have seen results where yes, you can have a little bit of a lower ROAS. You're gaining more market share with rank and certain keywords or a little bit of targeting, but then the sales will come a little bit after, and then you can optimize. So there is a little bit of, sometimes you have to take that leap of faith, if you will, in terms of, hey, let's be a little bit more aggressive, but we'll see the results afterwards. And especially once we've expanded, we've also learned more search terms, can harvest those keywords and optimize and move forward.
Cool, very cool. Would you be able to throw up that slide again for anyone who'd like to book an audit
Yeah.
with you guys? Uh,
Yeah, so feel free to, we've seen we do a free audit and the value, even if you end up saying, no, thank you, we'll do this on our own. At the end of the day, you'll still have a good results. This is a quick example of that single license structure where he'd previously come in and he sells Disney licensed products. And for example, Disney sneaker a Batman sneaker versus a Princess Belle sneaker. They were in the same campaign, didn't make sense in terms of the ad groups, and naturally you can have the perfect targeting Batman car sneaker for toddlers, and because it might show the Princess Belle sneaker, the conversion rate was horrible, the ROAS was horrible. All we have to do is separate it. That's where you need the human in the loop, because AI or technology would start to bid that down based on the lower performance. All you need to see is let's separate that, let's improve it, get the targeting correct, and then all of a sudden the ROAS spiked. Sales went from dozens of dollars a week to hundreds of dollars a week, and he was able to then start selling more and ordering more of these products. So we can find these types of things through advertising result or advertising audit. Look at the data, look at the results, see if there's wasted ad spend. We typically find anywhere from like 20 to 40% of what we call wasted or unprofitable ad spend is generally being on an account. So trying to minimize that. What other bid adjustments or strategies are there to be able to really maximize the opportunity for accounts? So yeah, you can find it on our website. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about helping the ecosystem just be more efficient, try to keep more dollars for us as opposed to giving it over to Amazon.
yes, and as you try, Amazon tries to take more and more on the other line items.
Yep.
How old are your kids, Chris?
Yeah, they're 4 and 6, and then he's the 6-year-old's birthday is New Year's Day, January 1, so everybody celebrates it around the world. But yeah, no, we have they're in school right now, coming home soon, and yeah, getting ready for dinner.
So yeah, I guess last question then. What's the number one toy that kids are at like 4-year-olds and 6-year-olds are asking for this year?
Oh yeah. I mean, sometimes it's just the classics, whether it's Minecraft, building blocks, or Legos. Legos has its own interesting story of how they kind of plateaued, but then they've really been able to scale over
Yeah.
the past
I think selling to people like
few.
us.
Exactly, yeah, by leaning into the like speaking to customers, what do you want, and just growing from there. And I think maybe that's one other data point that we didn't talk about is always listening to your customers.
Mm,
It's one of the top recommendations from Y Combinator, but also here in terms of like looking at your reviews. If you have a 4.3, great, but why is it a 4.3? Can it be a 4.6? Because I actually just had a conversation with this for a customer looking at Rufus and Amazon. We could see, oh, the products are a little bit too small, create a larger size. That's another product that can be part of your child ASIN structure, and now you can increase your overall conversion rates and profitability there. So, yeah, always listening to customers and speaking to customers is definitely a good approach.
Yeah, I saw a really cool thing about that on about Lego. Just like their biggest growth market is, millennials, or they're all
Yep,
18 plus. No, not in a
adults,
bad
yeah,
way, but 18 plus kits of
yeah,
like, the plants and the Harry Potter stuff and the stuff that is just ridiculously big or expensive.
yeah, and yet the dollar per piece is still constant. I think it's like in a penny per piece. It's just that they're creating more variations, and
Yeah.
that's honestly another example of how we've seen our customers grow on Amazon is by, hey, you started out with 20 products, now you have 50,
Mm.
but you've been able to test and iterate, and we help you grow together. So
I'm sure 10 years ago nobody thought there'd be, $600 Lego sets.
I saw one I think was like 1,000 something for Star Wars, I believe. But yeah,
Mm.
it's crazy.
It's
But
crazy.
there's a market, they're testing it, and they're seeing the results.
Love it. Well, Chris, thank you so much for sharing with everyone. Anyone who's been on here or watching the replay, please make sure you book your audit. Now is the time to do it because it's still 7 weeks to Christmas. And yeah, have a great Christmas and New Year, everybody.
Well, thank you so much, John. Appreciate Seller Candy.
I appreciate you too, Chris. See ya. Bye.
Thanks.
And thank you, everyone.